So hi everyone, I'm Leah. Nice to see you all. I see a lot of familiar faces. So today we're doing our lunch and learn about Little Free Pantries. So we have the lovely Maddie Hynes. She's going to be chatting with us and doing a little presentation, and then we'll hand it over to Michael Cooper. I'll let them introduce themselves because they're lovely people, and I wouldn't do it justice. Um, but Maddie, I'll hand it over to you if you want to do your presentation and give a little introduction.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll share my screen, and if you could just confirm that you can see my slides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also quickly mention as well, if anyone has questions, there'll be time for a Q&A at the end. So you can put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end.
Okay, thanks so much, Leah. So I'm Maddie Hines. I'm a program assistant with Food First NL, and I'm also the lead for our Rethinking Food Charity project. So I'll just dive right in. I'm going to be sharing some insights from our Rethinking Food Charity project, specifically centering findings related to dignity, community, and the right to food, and why these insights are relevant for community-led initiatives like Little Free Pantries. So I'll just start by setting the context. Food insecurity, of course, is a serious challenge here in the province. About 1 in 3 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians live in a food insecure household, and we actually have the highest rate of childhood food insecurity in the country. Of course, the current environmental chaos and the economic pressures are only further compounding these challenges. So while food charity programs are not the answer or solution to food insecurity, we know that they remain an important emergency support, and how these programs are delivered and how they're experienced by those who access them is just as important as the tangible support that they provide. And this is something that we heard loud and clear with Rethinking Food Charity. So with this project, we set out to ask, what could food charity look like in Newfoundland and Labrador if we reimagined it from the ground up? This was an 8-month project that engaged hundreds of people with lived and living experience of food insecurity, including those who access food charity programs and those who do not, as well as service providers across the province. The goal was to understand what's working, what's challenging, and where opportunities exist to improve food charity in a way that centers the people who use it. So the project unfolded across 4 main stages. We began by launching a province-wide survey for people with lived and living experience of food insecurity, including those who access food programs and those who don't, even when they might need them. We heard from 495 people across Newfoundland and Labrador, and their responses helped us identify key points and shaped what came next. To further deepen that conversation, we also partnered with 7 community organizations that work closely with people experiencing food insecurity. On our behalf, they hosted 13 focus groups and engaged roughly 78 participants, and this brought forward a wide range of lived experiences, perspectives, and priorities. So we also wanted to hear from the people doing this work every day. So we shared a survey with food program providers across the province, including volunteers, staff, board members, and coordinators from programs like food banks, community freezers, community meal programs, and so forth. And this survey received 63 responses. Building on this, we then held 5 regional and province-wide focus groups with food program service providers, engaging 124 of them. And these conversations again focused on what's working, what's challenging, and where folks are seeing gaps, challenges, and opportunities within the current system. So to wrap up the process, we brought together provincial and national partners for an in-person gathering in St. John's. We shared the initial findings and we invited feedback to create a space for collective reflection on what we had heard up to that point. In total, we had 59 participants from 31 organizations who attended, and their insights and reflections really helped shape the final stage of the project, and they continue to inform our work today. So the project culminated in a final report outlining what we had heard, along with 21 recommendations for the sector, including 3 directed at the provincial government. Ultimately, this process painted a comprehensive, province-wide picture of food charity in Newfoundland and Labrador, one that is grounded in lived experience and frontline realities, and it revealed patterns, tensions, and opportunities that consistently emerged across regions and roles. So across all conversations, there were 6 key themes that kept coming up. And today I'm going to focus on the four that are particularly relevant to our conversation around Little Free Pantries. So, one of the strongest and most consistent themes we heard was around dignity. Many people told us that they avoid entirely or delay accessing food programs because of fear of stigma and judgment. What was interesting and really important is that many service providers felt that the people accessing their programs did not experience stigma. And this kind of tells us something about how invisible this experience can be. For some people, the very act of needing food support is already deeply stigmatized and shameful. Think about not having the means to reciprocate the act of being helped. That stigma and shame is a result of societal and system failures, and not necessarily the fault of any individual program or policy, but it does mean that we need to be intentional about how services are delivered. Things like outdoor lineups, perceived lack of privacy, and how personal information is requested all shape whether people feel respected and dignified or exposed. Service delivery, of course, as I said before, matters just as much as the tangible support provided by the food program itself. And some things that food charities can do to help reinforce dignity to clients include offering private or indoor access wherever possible, rather than outdoor lineups, and implementing universal staff and volunteer training focused on trauma-informed care, confidentiality, and stigma reduction. Together, these approaches aim to ensure that food support is experienced with greater dignity and respect, rather than shame or fear of judgment. When food support is delivered in ways that respect dignity and minimize stigma, it moves closer to fulfilling the right to food, not just in principle, but in people's lived experience. So another consistent theme that came through was choice. People told us that they want the option to be able to select food that meets their personal, dietary, cultural, and household needs and preferences, rather than receiving prepackaged hampers with no cohesive ingredients to make a meal, and foods that may not work for them. So instead, models that increase choice, like grocery store style layouts or gift card programs, were widely supported by both service users and providers, because being able to choose the food that we bring home and consume restores autonomy, reinforces dignity, and helps realize the right to food in a more meaningful way. People who use food programs are often navigating financial pressures and sometimes severe food insecurity. Allowing them to choose the food that they receive is especially meaningful during this period when they may already feel they have very little choice in other areas of their life. Having control over what you eat makes a meaningful difference in how food support is experienced. So collaboration was another theme that came through loud and clear. Many food programs in Newfoundland and Labrador, particularly smaller volunteer-run programs, which make up the majority of the sector in the province, operate with limited resources. Delivery services are uncommon, and wraparound supports are often stretched thin if they're available at all. Given the level of demand that they face, many programs are forced to focus almost entirely on day-to-day operations, leaving little time or capacity to build partnerships or collaborate more intentionally. As a result, many service providers described feeling siloed in their work. And from a right to food perspective, this lack of coordination places unnecessary strain on programs and limits people's ability to access food in a consistent, dignified, and reliable way. Service providers identified stronger sector collaboration as a viable solution to many of the pressures that individual food programs face. In practice, collaboration in the food charity sector could include shared staff, space, delivery services, or other resources to help reduce duplication and ease pressure on individual programs. Working together, of course, makes programs more sustainable, reduces burnout, and it can help reinforce a shared responsibility to uphold the right to food within our communities. So the fourth and final theme that I'll focus on today is around accessibility. We heard that for many people, physically getting to a food program is often the first hurdle. People with lived and living experience described a range of barriers that can make food programs difficult or near impossible to access, including long lineups, limited or inflexible hours, stressful or invasive intake processes, and spaces that are just not physically accessible. When access is difficult, support exists in theory, but not necessarily in practice. Service providers echoed these concerns, noting how structural limitations and administrative requirements can unintentionally exclude people who need support. Steps food programs can take to address these barriers include adjusting hours to better reflect community needs, removing unnecessary eligibility requirements such as proof of income, and investing in physical upgrades to improve accessibility for people with disabilities. Ultimately, accessibility is not just about convenience, it's about dignity and rights. When food support is easy to access, it meets people where they are rather than pushing them to navigate more hurdles. And it helps ensure that the right to food is upheld in practice and, again, not just in principle. So, the two final themes that came out of this project, I'll just briefly mention, are advocacy and income solutions. So advocacy can better support broader systemic change, such as policy improvements, while income solutions map directly onto the root causes of food insecurity. And although these themes are critical to the bigger picture, they're less directly relevant to today's conversation, so I won't go into detail here, but they are explored more fully in the Rethinking Food Charity final report, which is available online, and I'll share a link to that in a minute. So, these insights help set the stage for our conversation about Little Free Pantries today. While they're not a perfect solution, Little Free Pantries can be a practical, community-led example of several principles that emerged through the Rethinking Food Charity process, especially when they're well supported and thoughtfully maintained. When they're functioning well, they can support dignity through discreet, self-directed access to food without intake forms or eligibility screening, enable choice by allowing people to take what works for them. They rely on collaboration through shared community responsibility from neighbors, organizations, or volunteers to stock, monitor, and maintain them. And they improve accessibility by being located directly within communities and neighborhoods and available outside of those limited operating hours. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge that Little Free Pantries do not always meet these principles, particularly when they're under-resourced or inconsistently maintained. But when they are intentionally designed and supported, they reflect many of the same ideas that we heard through Rethinking Food Charity. And that's what makes this project a useful lens for today's conversation and a great transition to Michael's experience, who you will hear from in just a moment. So thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about the project, the reports and recommendations, everything is online. So I have a QR code here on the screen. If you want to snap a picture of that, it will take you straight to our project page. And if you're interested, I definitely encourage you to explore and think about how it applies in your services and communities. You're also welcome to email me with any questions, thoughts, or ideas about the project. And if anyone on this call runs a food program, I'd love to connect and see how we might support you in implementing some of the recommendations if you're interested or curious. So now I shall hand it over to Michael to share his work and experience with Little Free Pantries in the Bonavista Vista region.
Thank you so much, Maddie. I'm just going to pull up Michael's slides here for him. But thank you for really setting the scene for this discussion and to hand it over to Michael. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to present this. Okay, there we go. And now I need to share my screen. All right, can everyone see the slide deck?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Michael.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about Little Free Pantries. I'm Captain Michael Cooper. I'm commanding officer of the Trinity Port Rexton CLB company and also the CLB's regimental programs director. CLB, for you who don't know, we are the oldest youth organization in Newfoundland and Labrador. How our Little Pantry project came around was actually the kids themselves. They wanted a project to help people with food insecurity, but to do it without stigmas. So this is where this project came from. And this is the main thing about our program is we cover the whole Bonavista Peninsula right now, we have pantries right from Lethbridge right down to Bonavista. If they're not a little pantry, they're a sharing cupboard. They're the same size as a book hut or a little library. And like I said, this is a group crowd sharing solution. And we base it, take what you need, give what you can. And you can see this little template here is just about everything we do with the program. Now, this is where our program gets a little bit different from most. When we started this program, we decided that we were going to, there's no funding out there, so we had to get creative. So we went uh, to the local contractors. Three carpenters are actually there to help and support us here. And the kids are building these pantries all out of recycled materials that we've got. The only thing that was new on these was the screws. Everything else, and then the carpenters, they helped us. They made them into like a module kind of thing, and the kids put it together. And as you can see here, these are actually there are three. Actually, I had to look at. There are three different pantries that we actually got completed. That's the first batch, actually. As you see, they're very high visibility pantries. These three actually are the first three. One went by Town Hall in Port Rexton. The other one went to Champneys Arm to an old store location. And the last one went to Union House Arts in Port Union. That was the first batch. Then we put another four in Goose Cove, Trinity, Bonavista. And we have a mega pantry down in Bonavista too. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. And welcome to Private Teddy Bear. When we first launched this, stigma and like just people being embarrassed, we said we used our mascot. That's our mascot, Private Teddy Bear. We used him to promote and to tell about the pantry program and to tell people what you can donate, how you can donate. And we're using him and the youth for original donations. Took away a lot of those stigmas very well because we got the kids involved. And even now today, when we go refill a pantry anytime, we always have snacks for kids so we can tell them about the program as we're filling. Okay, this is the first three of the pantries that we actually took the picture of a few minutes ago. Top left is the one in Champneys Arm. One on the bottom left is Port Union, and the one there in purple is actually right by the town hall in Port Rexton. Each of those locations were picked because they're high, what to classify, high visibility, high traffic locations. But at the same time, they actually have ebb and flow for traffic. So you can go in there discreetly and go to and look in the pantry if you need it. And in the middle there is actually what's on the inside of every one of our pantries that we ever put out. It tells you more about the program, what you can put in there, how to stock it. And if you want to help out or donate or anything, there's actually a thing on the bottom for it. Okay, this is the last of our pantries out there now. Top left, we have Trinity, which is a new one. Then below that is actually a 4-Point Lions Club in Goose Cove. The next two you'll see is the top one is the Wellness Center down in Bonavista. That is the Wellness Center in Bonavista where a lot of families go to. And the last two slides are our mega pantry, which we put in when the food bank in Bonavista is a actually someone telling about it, is the one we put in there when the Bonavista food bank closed up. So we had to have somewhere where we do bulk. As you can see, we had there in those two pictures some loose items, and those bags for every one of them is hampers we prepared beforehand. Between 20 and 24 items, they were grab grow bags that we started off with. Oh, and for winter months, outdoor pantries, everything is free, so we'll go to a dry good mode, and we put totes like that one in locations where it's open. Like in Port Rexton, we use the rink building, which is open 13 hours a day, just so the canned goods and all that stuff don't freeze, and it's still very accessible to everyone. Of course, I had to get Leah in the middle of one. These ones here are just two ideas of what we have in the pantries. These are open 24 hours, 7 days a week. So there's always access there. As you can see, in the summer months, we have produce and that kind of stuff. And then you have feminine products. You have just about anything you can think of is in these pantries for people in need. And there's, like I said, they're open 24/7. Okay, now how our pantries are different from most. Every Little Free Pantry we put in place, we have what we call managing partners. They are the ones we work with from time to time, and they make sure that they are filled up at least 70% full. And they will call me if they need extra supplies. And not only that, we always make sure we have feminine products in every one of them, just in case. And our organization, we do the initial fill for every Little Free Pantries. Now we work, actually it's interesting, big talk of collaboration. We work with all the food banks in the area. All we ask for is their overstock and items that will date out in 2 to 3 months because we can move it faster than they can. By doing this, not only do we help them out, but we also talking to all the food banks. If one has an overstock, we can help them if another food bank has that in the need. So it's actually a win-win for everyone. Having our program youth built and supplied, because we bring the kids in, we actually remove a lot of the stigmas, and like I said, we encourage the kids when we refilled, and we actually get a lot of kids come up to me when they see the logo come next to the pantries. They'll come over, ask about it. Usually I have Rice Krispie cookies or Nutri-Grain bars or something like that with me at the time to give them. And and it actually creates a conversation with the kids. And then down the road, and I've had this many times, the the kids come back, oh yeah, I told my parents about this, and they've actually made use of these pantries. Okay, we encourage food, what we call food exchanges, and teach accordingly. Food exchanges is we encourage families, if say they received a hamper from somewhere and they have items they don't like or don't use or anything, we actually encourage them to come to one of our pantries, go in, find something they will actually use, and exchange it. Uh, we find by doing that actually opens up and removes even more of the stigmas again, and encourages people to use the pantries and keep it very free flowing. So it actually helps and allow it. And we teach the kids, don't be ashamed. And the kids actually look forward to a food exchange. What we do with that is they bring one item in, and I usually bring a whole bunch of different items, and then they actually swap the items to bring home to their families. We encourage community gardens. We actually run one of the community gardens here, and we have a couple others that work with us. Our community garden here alone last year, from what we grew, we made 124 soup kits, which is all the vegetables plus an extra kit to make the soup. And then we put them in through the Little Free Pantries. Uh, so because fresh produce and fruit and veggies is very hard to get a lot of times. So when we do that, we heavily promote it, and usually we put it out there 2 days, all of it's gone. And it's like I said, and it's a big ask for it. Every Little Free Pantry, I always say this, they have their own personality, depending on where they're to. I know the one in Chatham's Arm here is more based toward families, where the one up by the town hall in Port Rexton is more towards seniors, and they like the items move accordingly. So we encourage my staff and managing partners, if they're finding something not moved, go to one and to switch it up. And by doing that, we keep stock what's acceptable and usable to what your area to be used and moved. Okay, and here's where we get really different now. Um, when the Bonavista Vista Food Bank closed, and we actually had the Carolina Food Bank close same time this summer, so it was only Port Rexton Food Bank and us. We're the only two food thing on the whole peninsula, right from Clareville down. We were the only two that was in place, so we partnered up. I managed to get a proxy food bank capability. That's what they put me in as, so I got access food programs. And we're doing this between the two of us, and now even more so, we actually could do hampers and those in need, but we do a little different than most. Only way we do our vetting is done by frontline health workers. We don't ask the questions, they do, and they contact us. Most of the times we get initials, if it's adults, kids, feminine products needed, and if there's anything that we have to worry about allergies or anything like that, and we make hampers accordingly. So our hampers, when we do send them, are usually tailored to whoever we send it to. However, saying that, we do have generic hampers in Bonavista, just in case there's emergency ones. We work with the healthcare. We work with foster program. We work with seniors. We actually have one of our hampers actually delivered right to the hospital because there was a patient there. So we make sure that access is available to everyone, tailor as much as we can at the time. We do a lot of food rescues, especially 211, and I seen senior come on there a few minutes ago. That yeah, Second Harvest is a godsend for our program. They actually help fill the gaps we have through getting food. Um, they they really help us out, and with the help of the frontline workers, their program actually allows us to access frozen and perishables, and and then you just threw me after, and that way we can actually make them and move it the same day. Last week alone, we moved over 200 what we call heat and eat steamer meals, and we had them all gone within 14 hours. And the last one, we are listed on 211 system for food security on the Madison Peninsula just because of the uniqueness, and we are always supplied. We always have food available. Matter of where it's emergency right away, we can usually have in your hands within 24 hours, but we usually have a system set up that if a healthcare worker or someone there, we have something to them right away, where it might be just a simple meal until we get a bigger hamper to them. But we always have food available. Now, this is where we get to think. Little Free Pantry program, we get zero financial help. Everything we get is through our own things. And as we grow, this is becoming a major issue. We're actually starting to notice it a little bit now, where we're going to do food rescues and all that. Gas is a big thing, especially just moving that. Food donations, because we're not a food bank, we can't access most food sharing programs. The biggest one we found was normally the food drives of Christmas. We didn't get access to any of that whatsoever, and this is just an example of it, of how that works. And we help everyone. We don't care who you are, race, color, nothing. But this, we're open to everyone 24 hours, 7 days a week. But without financial or food donation, we can't tailor to like families not as much as we would like to. Now, the one thing we've really found, and is a big thing that we need to address to the government, is we're finding from our work with the food banks, it creates a full win-win situation where they get rid of their overstock and actually helps them streamline. But in the same time, we get all the stuff from them. By us being nearby them, actually creates usage of them go down between 10 and 12%. Yes, and Julia's there, yes, on the phone, on the line. I was trying to remember her name. And if there's any questions, I'm ready. I can answer anything you want there.